In the 4th month of pregnancy, I lost my job. My husband proposed an AA marriage. Each keeps the income and claims its own expenses. Even if I had heavy bleeding during childbirth, he was unwilling to pay for me to prolong my life. My child and I both died. Open your eyes again and go back to the day when my husband proposed the AA system. I readily agree. He didn't know that I was a hippon horse orc and could transfer the child to his stomach. 1. I was reborn to the day when I was unemployed. In the evening, as soon as I announced the news, my husband Shin Bing-ha directly said that he wanted to live in the AA system in the future. Each keeps the income and claims its own expenses. Lin, don't worry, I will never spend in more penny on you. I won't go back to what I spent on you before. He said it so well that I didn't know how much money he spent on me. In fact, we got married naked without a dowry or a wedding. Shin Bing-ha borrowed money to buy a house, and I paid for the decoration. After marriage, we will each pay half for the mortgage and car loan. Because I work more easily and have more rest time, I pay my daily expenses, utilities and electricity bills, and I also do the housework. Even when I go out with Shin Bing-ha on a date, I pay for the food and movie tickets. Shin Bing-ha's expenses are limited to birth planning supplies. In my last life, I exploded as soon as I heard this. When I was paid, you didn't AA with me. Now I'm unemployed because I need to raise a baby. I need you to support me, but you have to make a clear calculation with me. At that time, Shin Bing-ha was moved by emotion and reason. Honey, I'm also for your own good. You see, you don't have parents. I have parents and you know their health. If we live in AA, my parents will not need your support at all when they get sick in the future, which is fair to you. I said I would like to support your parents with you. Shin Bing-ha shook his head. I can't bear to let you suffer so much. He said it in the cloud, and even if I was reluctant, I still accepted it. Just because I love him so much. But I didn't expect that my love would put me to death in the end. 2 days before the due date, I broke the amniotic fluid. After going to the hospital, the doctor said that my baby was too big to have a cesarean section. Shin Bing-ha didn't want to. Honey, there is a lot of money difference between cesarean section and natural childbirth. I only want to give you the money for natural childbirth. If you have to have a cesarean section, you can pay the rest yourself. Only then did I see his true face. People's lives are at risk. He actually thought that the hospitalization fee was I held back my anger and told him that I had almost spent my savings during this period, and asked him to pay in advance for me first, and then return the money to him when I worked. Are you out of money? Shin Bing-ha was shocked. That's even more impossible. We have already agreed that I won't give you one more point. There is no other way. I can only insist on giving birth naturally, but the child is too big. I was stuck in the birth khana for a long time when I gave birth to him. After the child comes out, the brain is hypoxic and needs to live in the newborn monitoring room. As a result, I also had a heavy bleeding, and my whole body was changed, not to mention that I still needed to stay in the ICU. At this time, I was in a coma, but Shin Bing-ha refused to pay for the medical expenses for me and the baby, and forcibly dragged our mother and son to death. Honey, I just want to be fair to you, so you don't agree with your future life AA? Shin Bing-ha's words brought me to reality. Because I haven't spoken for a long time, Shin Bing-ha said the reason why he wanted to AA with me in his last life. Across the dining table, he looked sincere, as if I had taken a big advantage. I smiled slightly. But my husband, I have parents. Point 2. Shin Bing-ha's smile froze on his face. You have parents. Why haven't you mentioned it? Because my parents are not human. Our family is a seahorse orc. We, the seahorses, have always been male seahorses to give birth to children. So when I announced that I would marry a human and give birth to a child for him, my parents kicked me out. I said, I have too many children and my parents don't care, so let's not use AA. Shin Bing-ha said to me, Lin, I don't want to be unhappy because of money in the future. I think AA is very good. Let's do this. I thought for a more and said, it's okay, but there's no basis for words. Let's make a word. Shin Bing-ha quickly found a pen and paper to write down the specific content. He wrote so fast that he was afraid that I would regret it. 5 minutes later, he handed me the paper. After reading it, I asked him, you only wrote about expenses and housework, not about having children. Shin Bing-ha didn't know why. Having a baby costs half for each of us, including your obstetric examination and surgery. Don't worry, my husband won't let you suffer. It's not just expenses. How harmful is it to having a baby? Shin Bing-ha's face changed. You don't want me to take care of everything, do you? This child is not just me. That's not just me. Why do I want to be pregnant for 10 months and I may be stabbed in the end? You can easily live for 10 months. Shouldn't I be 5 months pregnant and you be 5 months pregnant? Shin Bing-ha was stunned for a few seconds and suddenly burst into laughter. If I can get pregnant, I will definitely be pregnant for you for 5 months. I said, okay, then you can write it on the agreement. I'm 5 months pregnant and you're 5 months pregnant. Shun Binghe only thought that I was unstable and short-tempered, so he wrote this at the end. After finishing writing, the two of us signed and stamped. I was very satisfied with Hong Tong Tong's handprint. I said to him, "Husband, I will take good care of you when you are pregnant in the future." Shun Binghe laughed. "Lin, you are really confused. How can a man get pregnant? Why not? Our seahorses have evolved to the present, and our constitution can change as we want. You can make yourself pregnant, you can also make a man pregnant, and you can also put your half-pregnant child into a man's belly. Since we want to be AA, let's do A to the end." After signing the agreement, Shun Binghe began to calculate with me for tonight's meal. "This dinner tonight is the dumplings I brought back from my mother. You ate a total of 12.80 cents each, a total of 9.6 yuan. Please transfer it to me." In his last life, Shun Binghe was the same. Every account was accurate to the decimal point. If my mother-in-law comes to see us cook for us, he will have to be converted into money. At that time, although I felt uncomfortable, I felt that I had promised to live like this, so I endured it. Look at it now. This man even wants to count how many you eat when eating dumplings, and his heart is full of calculations. I transferred the account. The moment he heard the sound, Shun Binghe opened his eyes and smiled. "I'm going to wash the dishes. Lin, you pour the garbage." I said, "Wait." Shun Binghe looked at me in confusion. I smiled and said, "It's yours, but it's not mine yet. This dumpling was made by your mother, but when you brought it back it was raw and I cooked it. This manual has to be paid. Even if it's 10 yuan, you can eat it. This cucumber is 6 yuan for cucumber, 3 cents for vinegar, and 8 cents for a piece of garlic. I didn't eat it. Just now, I also washed your socks for 12 yuan, so a total of 20 yuan and 4 cents. You can transfer it to me." 3. Shun Binghe's face became ugly. Lin, how can you calculate so clearly when the two of you live?" I squinted and smiled. "It's not what you said. The money is calculated clearly, so there is no conflict between two people living. After all, it was Shun Binghe's proposal. He was unable to refute me, so he could only transfer the money to me honestly. After cleaning up the housework, I went to take a shower. I'm 18 weeks pregnant now, and my stomach hasn't come up yet. It was said that I was pregnant in October, but in fact I was 38 weeks pregnant and gave birth. So the child will be transplanted there next week. I have to quickly install the gestational sac for Shun Binghe. It is also very simple to install a gestational sac. I put on sexy pajamas and sprayed perfume. When I went out of the bathroom, I saw Shun Binghe making a watch. When I put my whole body on his back, I saw that what he was doing was actually a housework price list. Suddenly my interest was halved. But this is the only way to install the gestational sac, so I had to hook his neck. He shouted softly, "Husband." When Shun Binghe looked back at me, his eyes lit up. I have to say that Shun Binghe's face looks good no matter how you look at it. At the beginning, I fell in love with him at first sight because of this face that I didn't care about marrying him. I kissed him directly. Shun Binghe refused me. "You are still pregnant. It's been 4 months. It's okay. Listen to me, it's okay. Shun Binghe is here." After a joy, Shun Binghe fell asleep. Early the next morning, a pink mark appeared on Shun Binghe's stomach. That's the mark of being implanted on the gestational sac. I'm very satisfied. But even so, there is a risk of failure. To be on the safe side, I planted him for 4 days in a row. Shun Binghe was so tired that he cried bitterly and said to me, "If it goes on like this, I will have to charge. After all, you enjoy my contribution in this matter." I was speechless for a moment, but when I saw that the mark on my stomach had turned mature purple, I laughed again. Shun Binghe also found this purple, but he only thought it was kissed by me and didn't take it to heart. A week later, I proposed to take Shun Binghe to meet my parents. Shun Binghe asked, "Why is it so sudden? Didn't we make a deal with each other?" I said, "My parents want to see you during this period. Out of etiquette, they should also go." What else does Shun Binghe want to say? When I made it clear that I had prepared the gift, he smiled. When he arrived at my house, Shun Binghe stared wide-eyed and said incredulously, Lin, is your family so rich?" I have always told Shun Binghe that I have many children, and my parents don't care about them. So he always thought that my family lived in the mountains, had 7 or 8 children, and my parents worked outside all year round. When he went out today, he dressed very slobbily and went out. My family does live on the mountain, but the whole mountain is mice. You need to take a bus from the gate of my house to my living area. Shun Binghe kept complaining to me in the car. Why don't you make it clear? You see how impolite I am dressed like this. It turned out that he also knew that meeting his parents needed to be more formal. I said, it's okay. My parents don't care about this. I have hundreds of siblings. My parents don't care about the spouse's character, but about their breeding ability. Shun Binghe asked again. Lin, your parents have a lot of assets. It's a lot. I smiled and said, but I have a lot of brothers and sisters, and each of them only shares tens of millions. Tens of millions are also astronomical for ordinary families. Shen Binghe looked annoyed. It seems that he regrets living with me, AA. My father will give him a pulse as soon as he meets him. Shen Binghe didn't know why. I told him, my father is a traditional Chinese medicine doctor at the national treasure level. He usually only treats big people. Hearing this sentence, Shen Binghe stretched out his hand directly. My father was very satisfied with Shen Binghe and kept nodding and saying, that's good, very good. Shen Binghe thought that my father said that he was in good health and looked proud. At night we stayed in the villa. After Shen Binghe fell asleep, my parents came. My mother looked at his body and said, little 33, it's really good that you found this free man. He was born pregnant. How many gestational sacs did you give him? I said, 4. My mother said, it's a pity. It should be a few more, but don't worry. Take your time in the future. Your generation is the most competitive. In our generation, there are fewer male seahorses who are willing to give birth to children. I rank 33rd in my family, but none of my brothers or sisters have children. But my father asked, did he really promise you to have a baby? I took out the agreement and the black letters were drawn on the white paper on it. My father nodded frequently. Yes, I'll help you move the child there now. A month later, Shen Binghe's stomach became bigger, and his weight increased by 10 kg. He thought he had eaten too much during this period and began to exercise crazily. Not to mention that there is no effect after exercising for a period of time. Until that day, he felt the fetal movement. My husband wants the AA system, and I moved the fetus to his body 39,103. 4. At first, Shen Binghe thought it was his stomach that had a problem and wanted to go to the hospital for examination. I was afraid that he would take medicine indiscriminately and affect the fetus, so I suggested, I'll take you to see my father. Knowing that it was free to spend money, Shen Binghe immediately agreed. I took him to my father's clinic. As soon as he arrived at the clinic, Shen Binghe was frightened by the man with a big belly in the room. He asked me in a low voice, Lin, who on earth did your father see the doctor? These men are very strange, as if they are all pregnant. It's not like I'm pregnant. These men are pregnant. My father is a famous gynecologist of our Hippocus. He can not only give birth and give birth by himself, but also solve the problem of infertility. I didn't say anything and took him directly into my father's clinic. After my father said a few words that the child is well developed, Shen Binghe frowned. Dad, are you mistaken? I just have a stomachache. Where did the child come from? My father looked at me puzzled. Haven't you told him yet? I shrugged my shoulders and said, I haven't found a chance yet. Fortunately, my father's clinic has popular science films in this regard, and the assistant took a tablet. Shen Binghe knocked the tablet to the ground after watching it for 3 minutes, and his face turned pale in an instant. What a seahorse! What kind of man has children? He directly dropped the tablet on the ground, and his eyes were about to stare out. Li Roland, did you partner with your father to deceive me? Don't you just think that I'm at a disadvantage with you? As for this kind of joke. After scolding me, he pointed at my father and scolded. Doctor, I don't see you. I'm going to another hospital for examination. Shen Binghe walked out, and I stopped him with a cold face. Are you sure you have to go to another hospital? You can't hide the fact that you are pregnant. Shen Binghe said, don't lie. I'm not pregnant. I said, your stomach is so lively every night that you won't feel that this is a fetal movement. Shen Binghe took a few steps back with his stomach covered. I know he believes it. After all, after poking through this window paper, he has an explanation for those abnormalities. He asked me, why do you put a gestational sac in my body? The popular science film just now made the process of seahorses getting pregnant for ordinary humans very clear. It seems that Shen Binghe still listened to it. I looked at him indifferently. Don't you want AA to get pregnant? Shen Binghe finally remembered our agreement, and his face became more ugly. After a moment of silence, Shen Binghe actually begged my father to help him abble the child in his stomach. My father had enough of the excitement. This is about you too. Go out and discuss it. I still have a lot of patience. Out of the clinic, we went to the lounge on one side. Shen Binghe said to me again, Lin, I was wrong before. Let's abort the child. In the future, we won't AA and live a new life. I shook my head and said, I like AA very much. You're right. Marriage should be fair so that there is no contradiction. Since I have been pregnant for a few months, you should be pregnant for the remaining months. It's very fair. That's not what I didn't know you were. Shen Binghe thought of something and said firmly, anyway, I'm going to kill this child. My stomach is mine. I can beat him if I want. He went out. I didn't stop him and went straight home. In the evening, I just finished my meal. Shen Binghe was aggressive and patted a piece of paper on the table. He glared at me angrily. Lee Roland, you have made me miserable. I glanced at the paper, and it turned out to be a B ultrasound photo of the little guy. I picked it up and saw that it already had a face. Shun Bingha's stomach has only been growing so fast for a month. The name on the B ultrasound list is not Shun Bingha. It seems that he feels ashamed and uses a pseudonym. I asked him with a smile. What? This hospital won't call you. Point 5. Shun Bingha's face is very bad. I can think of what kind of stimulation he has received. His purpose of taking this B ultrasound is nothing more than to confirm whether what I and my father said is true. But at that time he was angry and forgot that ordinary men can't have children. Even if he uses a pseudonym, I'm afraid he will be surrounded by a group of doctors. The gestational sac of our hippocus is installed on human men, which is equivalent to installing the uterus for them. However, this is not uncommon in human beings. After all, human beings also have such a set of male and female reproductive systems. Therefore, male pregnancy is not uncommon for human doctors. It is so rare that I gave Shun Bingha 4 gestational sacs. It is equivalent to having 4 uterites. Shun Bingha appeared in the 3A hospital, just like a scientific research paper appeared in the hospital. Especially after seeing that there was a living baby in his stomach, the doctor excitedly asked Shun Bingha to take off his pants. Shun Bingha was originally surrounded by a group of people. When he heard this, he blushed in an instant. He put on his trousers, picked up the report and ran back. Lee Roland, you'd better take me to have an abortion, or I'll tell you that your family is a seahorse spirit, and someone will definitely come to arrest you for research. Ouch. So scary. I ate the noodles leisurely. After drinking the soup, I raised my eyelids and gave him a look. You are not the first person to know the secret of our family, and you will not be the last one. How do you think my father opened such a big clinic where all the male seahorses give birth to children? You really think the country doesn't know? The pollution has been serious in the past 2 years, so our half-beast and half-human animals have appeared. Not only our seahorse family, but also other beasts. If we want to survive in the human world, how can we not follow human rules? We all have a record. I tell Shun Bingha. Those people are not interested in us, but not in you, a man with 4 wombs but no vagina. Shun Bingha's threat is useless to me. I wiped my mouth and told him, but we don't force others to have children. But there is one thing I must make clear in advance. After you follow the word of that agreement, it is equivalent to accepting our hippon treaty. If you aborted the child, it will not be easy to have children in the future. Shun Bingha asked, what do you mean? It means that your sperm is ineffective for human women. It is equivalent to sterilization. Shun Bingha took 2 steps back, and his face was full of shock and helplessness, which was completely different from when he promised me AA at the beginning. Lee Roland, you are so cruel. I sneered. Each other. In our generation, there are very few male seahorses who are willing to have children. In order to continue their children, many female seahorses can only find human men to reproduce. However, human men are considerate of women, and if they really want him to get pregnant, they will always turn their faces. Only Shun Bingha is willing to draw on the agreement. Picked up a big baby. Shun Bingha lay in bed for 3 days and finally accepted the matter. It's not just my words that make him understand that even if he doesn't give birth to this child, he will have to give birth to him later if he wants to have his descendants. In addition, with the increase of the month, the increase of progesterone in the body stimulated Shun Bingha's paternal love and desire to protect the fetus. In front of hormones, no matter how rational people are, they can easily collapse. In order not to be found out by others, Shun Bingha submitted a resignation application to the company. After resigning, he told me to cancel the AA system life. Naturally, I won't agree. 6. Shun Bingha gritted his teeth and said, but I'm unemployed and have no income. Do you want to starve me and my child to death? I was moved by emotion and reason. Husband, I insist on AA is also for your good. My parents are different from your parents. They need special medicine when they get sick in the future. It's too expensive. I'm all for fairness. Your parents are so rich, what are those medicines for them? Shun Bingha's calculation crackled. If it really doesn't work, let's not A for this time, and we will continue when I give birth to a child. I glanced at him. Shun Bingha, do you think I'm a fool? I firmly disagree with the abolition of the AA system, and Shun Bingha has nothing to do with me. I had to borrow money everywhere. Only then did I know that his salary was full of moonlight. In the last life, Shun Bingha told me that his parents were not in good health, especially his father had uremia, and the monthly dialysis and medicine cost thousands of yuan. So when he told me about AA-based life, I not only didn't think he was calculating but also felt moved. Only now do I know that his father has uremia, but the state reimburses it every month, and it costs less than a few hundred yuan. His mother is not sick either. The reason why he said this to me was that he didn't want to spend money on me, and that he didn't want his mother to take care of me. Now all his calculations are like boomerangs stuck in himself. After borrowing for a long time, Shin Bingha didn't borrow much. I have to replace money with labor. He takes care of the housework at home just to make me pay for the meal. Before, he could go to his mother-in-law for 3 or 2 days to get something to eat. Now he is afraid that his big belly will be found out, so he can't go there because he hides at home. So he could only mop the floor with a big belly and cook for me with the disgust of the smell of oil smoke. If I don't do well, I will deduct the money. At the age of 8 months, Shun Bingha began to wheeze after 2 steps, and his feet were as swollen as steamed buns. He couldn't squat down when he was washing clothes. He was there for a long time. I was blind and sat on the sofa, high on melon seeds in one hand, and watching TV series with my mobile phone in the other. Shun Bingha saw the wet clothes in his hand falling heavily to the ground. I'm fed up with this kind of life, Li Roland. Shun Bingha looked at me with a resentful face. I'm washing your clothes with a big belly. It's okay if you don't say help. Why do you have to make garbage? I put away my mobile phone and said, okay, then I'll do the laundry and clean up, but you have to pay for the vegetables today. Shun Bingha was angry. Is it necessary to be so clear between husband and wife? I said it was common. I'm not also for your good. In the future. All right. Shun Bingha interrupted me and continued to do the laundry by hand. He vented his anger and seemed to make a big noise, and he was a resentful woman. At the age of 9 months, Shun Bingha's stomach became very big and the fetal movements were frequent. He turned over and couldn't sleep all night. After 2 nights, I packed up my things and prepared to move to the second bedroom. Shun Bingha was stunned. Are you still human? My stomach is so big that I'm at risk of life at any time. That I spread my hands, then I have to go to work tomorrow. Who can sleep if you turn over like this? I was fired by the boss, and the child doesn't even have money for milk powder. Shun Bingha was speechless for a moment. He still pulled the corner of my clothes, pitifully said to me. I turned over because I was really uncomfortable. The due date is in the next 2 days. I'm afraid that you're not by my side. The progesterone in his body made him sentimental, and he shed tears after saying a few words. I patted him on the shoulder. It's okay, husband. If you persist, you will be 5 months pregnant for the next one. Shun Bingha was stunned. The next child? Yes, it's fair if you don't say that you have 2 children, one with your surname and the other with my surname. This child should follow my surname first, and you will definitely have another child. Shun Bingha was unhappy. Why should I follow your surname when I work so hard to give birth to a child? Because I am also pregnant with her for 5 months. Shun Bingha couldn't stand it. Li Roland, I want to divorce you. I looked at him coldly. Are you sure you don't follow? I can still help you raise half of it. You are separated from me. You have to raise this child by yourself, and the child has no mother. From then on, he didn't dare to say a word about divorce. And these words were all what Shun Bingha said to me in his last life. 7. The day of the due date. Shun Bingha lay in the delivery room and kept cursing his mother in pain. He is pregnant. During this period, the structure of the body has slowly changed, and there is a small mouth in the stomach that can take the baby out. Even so, he suffered no less pain than ordinary women. My father looked at the child and straightened up and said, the child is a little big, and it's a little difficult to give birth. It's better to have a cesarean section. Shun Bingha's head was sweating in pain. Then operate on me quickly. I quickly stopped him. No, it's better to give birth naturally. Children who give birth naturally are smart. Shun Bingha clenched the sheets and roared at me with all his strength. Li Roland, you're crazy. If you go on, I'm going to die. I said indifferently, husband, there is a lot of money difference between cesarean section and natural childbirth. Anyway, I'm only willing to give you the money for a natural childbirth, and I'll pay for this. Shun Bingha was furious. You must be sick. I gave birth to a child for you, and you are still thinking about AA now. Let's make the money clear. After all, we signed the agreement at the beginning. This anger made Shun Bingha even more painful. Seeing that I was so determined, he turned around and began to beg my father. He said that for the sake of the family, he was operated on first, and then he would definitely pay back the surgery fee. My father smiled and said, I'm not doing charity in Shangyanshang. There is no other way. Shun Bingha can only be stubborn. His cry spread throughout the building, which was heartbreaking. But Shun Bingha is luckier than me. He met a doctor who was my father. Under my father's wonderful hands, the child is safe and sound. It's just that Shun Bingha suffered a great crime. The mouth on his stomach was so small that my father could only enlarge it with scissors. After several scissors, Shun Bingha left a long scar on his stomach. But it's also very good. He didn't have a heavy bleeding. When the nurse took the child out, I smiled happily. It's a girl. Hearing the news, my mother and several sisters rushed over. Oh, the first one is a girl. Xiao Sanson is really competitive. My husband doesn't want to give birth. You said it's natural for a male seahorse to give birth. Why doesn't he want to give birth? It's so cute. When I find a human man, the baby seahorse born will be Shui Ling. Everyone, you say a word to me all around the children. Shen Binghe lay on the bed and pursed his lips, looking lost. He thought that someone would comfort him. Unfortunately, no one will pay attention to him. The wound hurt so much that he couldn't sleep. A few hours later, Shen Binghe couldn't stand it and called out to me. Can you ask your father to give me some painkillers? I want to have a good sleep. From the initial contractions to the birth, Shen Binghe has not slept well for 3 days and 3 nights. This request could not be more normal, but I shook my head. Husband, you can't be so selfish. You still have to feed the baby. Feeding? Shen Binghe was shocked. It's not enough to drink milk powder. Yes, for 100 yuan per barrel of milk powder you pay 200 yuan, I pay 200 yuan. I'll buy it now, of course you have to give me a for the fare. Shen Binghe was helpless about my calculations, and he didn't even curse. He took the child over with his fate. But he didn't expect that giving birth to a child was the beginning of a nightmare. The baby needs to drink milk every 2 hours, and the evening is no exception. Shen Binghe was unhappy after feeding for a few days and said to me, "You like AA so much. Why don't you breastfeed?" I said, "Okay, then I'll feed it once and you feed it once, but the baby's urine can't get wet, and I need to wash the clothes once and you once." This sentence completely angered Shen Binghe. He didn't know where he got his strength. He rushed into the kitchen and chased me with a kitchen knife. Then I gave birth to a child and was stabbed 5 or 6 times, and now you should also be beaten back. 8. Although Shen Binghe is a man, he is still in super. I retreated from the weak and he fell down. After being pushed down by me, Shen Binghe sat on the ground and began to cry, looking at him with tears on his face. That I don't know if he remembered what kind of mentality he had when he wanted to AA with me at the beginning. I don't feel sorry for him at all. Shen Binghe wanted to divorce me after giving birth, but reality told him that even if he divorced me, not only the children would belong to me, the house and car should also be half with me. He has to go out to work. Okay, then pay for the maternity matron. A slightly better maternity matron earns more than 10,000 yuan a month. Car loan, housing loan plus maternity money, it costs nearly 20,000 yuan. Before Shen Binghe resigned, his salary was 8,000 yuan a month, which was already the ceiling of his life salary. Now he goes out to look for it, but he can't even find a salary of 8,000 yuan. I promised that if he took care of the children at home at ease, I would bear all the expenses, and Shen Binghe completely became a family cook. On the day when the child was 1 week old, Shen Binghe found out that she was pregnant with the second child. He looked at the pregnancy test report and thought about it again. He turned his head and said to me, "This time I'm pregnant with the first 5 months, and you're pregnant with the next 5 months." I made an okay gesture. No problem. But Shen Binghe didn't know that the first 5 months were more difficult than the last 5 months. Especially after the B ultrasound, I found that I was pregnant not only with 1 this time but also with 8. There are 2 in each gestational sac. I'm looking at the B ultrasound list. My father was right. Shen Binghe is really suitable for pregnancy. Shen Binghe, who was stimulated by progesterone in 8 children, has a serious pregnancy reaction and vomits what he eats. It was so serious that I went to the hospital to hang water. He was also particularly sentimental and washed his face with tears all day long. Before he could show his mind, Shen Binghe went out to find a job first, and wanted to wait for me to go to work seamlessly for 5 months. But he found that he had been abandoned by society. That it's just a year of work experience and he is frequently rejected. In the end, I can only find some construction sites, takeaways and express delivery. However, the spoiled Shen Binghe didn't want to be exposed to the sun at all. He worked as a trial for 2 days. He came back and told me that it would not be a to have a child this time, but I would give him a living allowance. After all, he was pregnant with 8, not 1. I nodded and agreed. Shen Binghe didn't heal the scar and forget the pain. Instead, body hormones will automatically make human beings forget the pain of giving birth, so as to achieve the purpose of reproduction. On the day, Shen Binghe had a fetal movement. 8 children together, it is not called fetal movement. It's called an earthquake. He remained his teeth in pain, and his lips were never rosy. Until the later stage, his belly was terribly big, and he weighed nearly 300 yuan. You can't even turn over. I can't say anything. If I sneeze a little, I will pee on the bed. Shen Binghe counted the days every day. He thought it would be enough to unload the goods. But he forgot that it took half of his life to give birth to a child last time. I have to give birth to 8 more this time. Before the day, Shen Binghe's stomach started. On the way, he was sure that he could have a cesarean section this time. But when he got to the hospital, he knew that although he was pregnant with 8 children, they were in 4 gestational sacs respectively. Each gestational sac has an outlet, which fully meets the conditions for a smooth delivery. Shun Binghe was so scared that his face turned pale. He begged me, Lin, just let me have a cesarean section. Even if I don't die, I can't have a stomach. I said no. You are all premature babies. If you come out to live in an incubator, you can't understand something and save me some money. 9. I refused Shun Binghe's request. So this time he scolded the child I gave birth to. The risk of giving birth to 8 is really high, not to mention giving birth for 4 days and 4 nights. At the 8th time Shun Binghe was exhausted, and Xiaoba was stuck in the birth canal. My father could only widen the birth canal with a knife, but this time he injured the aorta, and Shun Binghe bled. The blood of his whole body was changed, but he still didn't save his life. My father said that Shun Binghe still had one last breath and asked me to say goodbye to him. I walked over and saw Shun Binghe's face in despair. He asked me, "You did it on purpose. You are taking revenge on me." I looked at his eyes and understood. When did you be reborn? When I gave birth to the second one. Shun Binghe had just been reborn, and the great pain almost made him faint again. He didn't know what had happened, but the instinct of fatherly love forced him to complete the birth. It was not until my father rescued him that he figured out what had happened. Shun Binghe was very weak and scolded me very low. "Li Rolin, you treat me like this. When I recover, I will make you pay the price." Sure enough, men are all inferior. Even if he has experienced the same thing as you, he still won't be considerate. He will only think it's your fault. I smiled. It's a pity that you can't recover well. Shun Binghe was stunned. What do you mean? I whispered to him. Don't you feel that your strength is slowly passing? Do you remember how I died in my last life? Shun Binghe's pupils widened, and he looked at me disbelievingly, trying to sit up to prove that I'm wrong. Unfortunately, damn people are going to die. All the memories in his mind just now were just walking lanterns before his death. He struggled for a long time, but he had no strength at all. Finally, the words left to me by Shun Binghe are, when I'm reborn next time, you must. It must be something. Kill me? Stay away from me? No matter what, he won't regret AA with me. I sighed. He was too selfish. No matter what you do, there will be no good end. The news that my husband gave birth to 8 children spread in the clan. When the people of the clan knew about it, they came to my house to get scriptures one after another. My father gave me a lecture to teach me the way of a royal husband. I told those 7 aunts and 8 aunts that nowadays human beings pay attention to gender equality, and many men like to AA with women. But AA must be a disadvantage for ordinary women. After all, the AA system cannot avoid the topic of having children. But AA is really useful for our seahorse family. Many seahorse girls listened to my words and followed suit. Sure enough, they found a group of men who like to take advantage. This group of men are not human. We are not human. We are a perfect match. After Shun Binghe's death, I took 9 children back to my mother's house. My parents arranged for me to take care of these little ones. Because I was full of my career this year, I saved a little money and opened a marriage agency. Now, it is more convenient for the seahorse girl to find those men. The girl I introduced is high quality and beautiful without dowry, which attracts a large group of men. They got married and had children, and they still had to go to my father's clinic. Our family makes a lot of money, and our seahorse family is promising to prosper. Later I found another husband, a scientist. He studied the gestational sac, and invented the artificial gestational sac. In this way, even an ordinary girl can conceive a boy. After they can have children, no more man says that if I can give birth to me, I will give birth to you. The world is getting better and better. Full text finished.